And next we're going to look at the types of evolution handout. And we're going to read each description below and use the words from the word bank to label the type of evolution described. Convergent evolution, remember convergence, coming together. That's species becoming more alike. Let's think about how the penguin that swims in the water but actually lives on land is actually a bird, how its shape has come to be more like the shape of the dolphins and the whales, and they're all sleek, trimline to be able to scoot through the water. Their anatomy has become more alike over time. So you have a lot of sea animals that are built the same, even though they're different species. Divergent evolution, that's becoming more different. And that would be animals that were of the same species becoming different because they live in different environments. And we talked about how sometimes there may be a geographical barrier between them and they can't intermate, and their environments are different, so it selects for the ones who are more suited to that environment, and then they become more different. Those populations become more different over time. That would be divergent becoming different. And different, that should help you remember. Coevolution, that's two things evolving together over time. That would be like a plant that develops a toxin over time to keep a predator from eating it, but then maybe the pollinators that need to be in there will develop a resistance to that toxin over time, so they can still work together, but then it's still protected from the predator. So they evolve over time. And we'll see some examples of that in just a minute. Coevolution, evolving together. Then punctuated equilibrium. Remember, punctuated equilibrium was the one where the idea that evolution happens in big bursts, and in between those bursts we have stability where there's not a lot of change happening, and then maybe another burst of evolution. So we're going to read these and decide which one goes with which. First one says, in the ocean surrounding Antarctica, there are fish that survive the cold water by using a molecule made of glycoproteins that circulates the blood and keeps it from freezing. Certain kinds of worms that live in the Arctic Ocean also make antifreeze proteins to help them live in icy waters. Okay, totally different species. They live in the same environment, have the same environmental stressors on them, so they've become more alike. They're coming together, convergent evolution. The next one says ants that are the correct size and weight needed to open the flower for the peony plant. The peony plant provides food for the ant, and the ant fertilizes the peony flower. Okay, so they are adapting together. It's just the right size to open those peonies. So the peonies have are adapted to be the ones that open with that size. The ants have adapted over time to become mostly a population of ants that are that correct size. So that would be coevolution. They've adapted and evolved together. So coevolution. Next one says, horse evolution shows long, stable periods of little evolution interrupted by brief periods of rapid change. So it changes, and the horses stay the same for a long time, and then maybe some changes. That would be punctuated equilibrium. Happens in spurts. And next is a kit fox. That's a little fox. A kit fox lives in the desert, has large ears with greater surface area to keep the fox from getting overheated. It loses heat through the blood vessels in its ears there. So that's an adaptation to its environment. The red fox lives in the forest and has a red coat to keep it camouflaged. Okay, so it's developed different traits suitable to its environment. They're both foxes, but they've become different because they live in different environments. They're becoming different. They are diverging, moving away from each other. So that is divergent evolution. The next one says, hummingbirds have a beak just the right length to reach into the nectar of the cardinal flower. They feed when they feed, their forehead bumps into the pollen structure. Cardinal flowers are red, which hummingbirds can see, but bees cannot. Cardinal flowers' pollen structure is just the right length for the hummingbird to pick up pollen as it feeds. So they've adapted to work together. That is coevolution. The next one says the Galati atlantica and the Galati lizards evolved through natural selection from a common ancestor into a wide variety of different looking lizards. They become more different. They are diverging. Okay, the next one says whales, sharks, and penguins all have streamlined bodies and fins and flippers for moving in the water, even though they belong to different classes of animals. They have mammals there, fish there, and birds there, but they've all adapted to be a lot alike because they all survive in the same environment. They're coming together to be more alike. They are converging. It's convergent evolution. Next one, the Galapagos Tortoise shares a common ancestor, but they have necks of different length to best reach the food that they need in their environment. They live in different environments, different foods available. Some of them have food that grows down the ground. Some of them have to eat off the little bushes, so their necks will be longer because they have to stretch up. And they started out alike, but because they're growing up in different environments, over time they have adapted to those environments and become more different. So this would be divergent evolution. Divergent evolution. Next, we have this kind of evolution is proven by DNA analysis and results in organisms with different ancestors becoming more alike as they adapt to similar environments. They become more alike. They are coming together. They are converging. Convergent evolution. And that's where you see critters that you think are the same thing, but then you look at their DNA and they're really not. They're totally different things. So convergent evolution. Okay, next we have adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation is also known as, and they're becoming more different, turning into different species. That would be divergent evolution. Divergent, becoming more different. Okay, next we have an abrupt appearance of new species in fossil records. So if it happens abruptly, that would be punctuated equilibrium. It did not take a long, steady pace. It was abrupt. That would be punctuated equilibrium. The Galapagos Finches evolved through natural selection from a common ancestor into a wide variety of different-looking species. They're different. From one to different, that would be divergent evolution. And then we have ostriches, birds, and giraffes are mammals. Both are native to the savanna in Africa. They share the same characteristics of a very long neck. So they have developed similarities due to living in similar environments. They have become more alike. They're coming together more alike. It is convergent evolution. Convergent evolution. The beaver in North America and the capybara in South America share a common ancestor, but they have evolved over time to look differently. They're living in different environments, so they develop characteristics that are more suited to their environment through natural selection. They have diverged from each other. It's divergent evolution. And Another ostrich one. Ostriches are native to the savannas of Africa, while penguins live in the polar regions. Both are birds, but they have become very different. Although ostriches and penguins are closely related, they look very different because they live in very different environments. They have diverged from one another. And then last but not least, bees don't see red, but they do see yellow, blue, and ultraviolet light. Thus, bee-pollinated flowers are mostly yellow or blue with UV nectar guides. They make landing patterns for the bees. It guides the bees in. They usually have a small, narrow floral tube to fit the tongue length of the species of bee that is going to pollinate them. So they match up over time. They've evolved together. So that is co-evolution. Lots of cool things in nature like that. Not coincidence or happenstance. So that is that. Different types of evolution.